Welcome to this edition of ROV Meditation Practice Tips. And today, Stephen and I are going to explore the question, are we really all one? So that's a statement that is commonly made in all spiritual traditions and that is discovered in deep meditation, this indivisible unity of awareness and consciousness, this collective consciousness. And so today we want to talk about that both on a personal level in our own experience with each other and in our meditation groups, but also some of the research that backs that statement up. So let's begin with Stephen and my relationship, which has over the past several years, we have kind of come into this, actually almost from the beginning, we found that we had this resonance in our states of consciousness. We met each other in the fall of 2018, and we started to share our meditative experiences with each other. And as Stephen would describe a meditative practice, I found that I just was in that state with him as he was describing it, even though he's outside of Tokyo and I'm here in Colorado. Distance didn't matter at all. And we were meeting over Zoom and talking over Zoom and sharing experiences. And the same thing as we guided each other in meditations, we'd find that we were just naturally resonating in the same state together. And as we've co-guided meditations, we've found that one of us guiding just leads us into a state where the other person just naturally picks up, and we go back and forth. And there's just this shared consciousness that is speaking through us. And so we were, of course, just really, I mean, that's a very satisfying and feeling like you're really coming home and you really feel connected within and with each other. And we really wanted to share that with others. And so that kind of prompted us to start pulling together a course and a book and a meditation app to share these meditation experiences, and then these meditation groups to experience these states together. So Stephen's going to talk a little about some of the research from the Institute of Heart Math and other places that back up this idea of a collective consciousness that we share, and how it's possible that we share these states of awareness. So Stephen, I'll pass it to you.
Kevin, thank you so much. And thank you everybody always for listening into us, because when we do this together, we're fundamentally touching in on that coherent, stable and collective field, that we're all part of, this unified field. And I think that was a real aha moment for Kevin and I, is that we discovered in these experiments together that we really could reach a level of coherence and stable, interconnected awareness through raising our vibration, through connecting with energy, information and consciousness that was flowing through our being, that this life flowing through us was flowing through each other simultaneously. And that synchronicity and that synergy was really powerful and very palpable and felt, as well as being demonstrated to us on measuring instruments at the time, like Muse. So that made us quite curious, and it certainly made me curious about the research, especially HeartMath, whom I admire extremely deeply for all the work they've done over the years and in this kind of field. So when you look at it and you look at HeartMath and what Kevin and I and all of you are trying to do, one of the important goals we're really looking towards together is motivating as many people as possible to work together in a more coherent and collective and collaborative way. And so that our consciousness, so that we elevate people's vibration or human consciousness consciously, collectively, together. Because then we start to feel, we know we're influenced, or that the sun, for example, connects. We're very aware that it has an effect on our environment and on ourselves. If we go and lie in the sun for an entire day, we'll know that because we'll get sunburn, right? So there's really simple physical effects. But on a more subtle level and subtle energy level, some things are not quite so obvious. We're probably all familiar now that external fields like of both solar and cosmic origins do affect us. And now we're coming to be much more aware that, just as Kevin was relating about what happened to he and I, that human consciousness and emotions can actually affect the mental and emotional states of not only each other's consciousness, but groups of people. And this, in turn, broadens our view of what real interconnectedness is all about. Because Kevin and I found that in our guiding, we were not only affecting each other, but also by dropping into those states, becoming those states, and then speaking while we were in those states, that people in our groups would naturally fall into those states too. So it really speaks to how we can intentionally utilize these energies and actually intentionally shape the future of the world that we live in. You know, it's often said that if you want to see the future, look at the present. So if we're intentionally shaping the world in the present, we are going to create a future. And this really implies that all our attitudes and emotions and intentions, when they're coherent and cooperative and collaborative, that they have a really important influence on global events, on each other, on the groups, and then the groups on other groups, and the groups on communities, and the communities on global events and the qualities of life on Earth. So the Global Coherence Initiative, which is HeartMath, really had a number of strategies and a variety of hypotheses, which I really deeply support. And Kevin and I have spoken over this in raising our vibration a number of times. And one is that all our health is affected by, including any cognitive functions, emotions, and behavior are affected by both planetary and cosmic, magnetic, and energetic fields. So we've often spoken about the torus in this regards, and the fact that that is a field that we generate, that the Earth generates, that the planets generate, that the cosmos generates. And then another hypothesis is that these Earth's magnetic fields actually carry significant information and energy that connects all living systems, that these fields that exist, they are actually interconnected. They're not separate, and they carry biologically relevant information. So they make a difference. That when we raise our vibration and we work with energy, that we can actually encourage more abundant, healthier, more vibrant way of living. And the third one is that we affect that, so that we actually can affect this global information field. And we start to become very aware of that, especially in our groups. And then the fourth one is that when people, large groups of people, are in that state of coherence, when they're raising their vibration together and creating these heart-centered states of loving, kind, caring, and compassionate beings, that it actually also generates a more coherent field environment that interacts and benefits others, and actually has a positive effect on the planet, including the planet's discord, disharmony, and incoherence. So these are really useful hypotheses, and they were something that Kevin and I considered in all the work that we did in raising our vibrations. So I was really curious, when HeartMath over the years started to release some of their studies. They released studies about human health and behavior, and about the importance of the Schumann Resonance at 7.83 hertz, and Kevin and I in our graphs show those exact frequencies. We've often found in our studies of theta that happens, and that when we guide people, that people also drop into these similar coherent fields. And then another study that was done was in the area of human flourishing and interconnectedness and our effect on especially things like crime. There was this wonderful study that I often remember that was done in 1993. And in this study, they showed a 25% drop in crime in the Washington, D.C. area when 2,500 meditators meditated over specific periods of time. And it meant from the studies that were done that a relatively small group of a few thousand people could actually affect a much larger group. And so they looked at what might happen if you considered, bigger groups, wars, political activity, how you could actually help to decrease the violence or the incoherence of things like war and the intensity of conflict that has occurred right across our human family, right across history. So these kinds of studies really intrigue me. I've done a number of visits to different museums in Japan where I've taken part with my daughter and wife and random number generators and the interaction between human emotions and the geomagnetic field. And we found that much as they've described in many studies, that you can actually affect against what would be considered normal probability, that you can affect random number generators. So we certainly found that. We had some very interesting experiences in those museums, especially my daughter. She's very fresh and open and innocent. And when she kind of charges up her biofield, she definitely does have a curious effect on some of these random number generators. So there was and Kevin, you were going to mention about 9/11, because I know that was also a global event where they did a number of studies and found some interesting correlations.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that these large global events where there's like a collective emotion, they found the effect on globally on hospital visits and check-ins to mental wards and psychiatric institutions, and just associated with these global emotional, highly charged emotional events. And so it's, this is a real thing, this collective consciousness, this it goes beyond our consciousness is not just located in here. Okay, our consciousness reaches out and interconnects with all beings across time and across space without any boundaries. And certainly more local connections we may feel more strongly, but when there are global intense events, that affects us all. And so, yeah, we're really interested in how we can positively affect the global consciousness through practices like meditation and open-hearted awareness. And there was you were talking about the random number generator. I just listened to an ION study, Institute of Noetic Sciences. They just did a study on healers, and they had healers within this contained environment, which couldn't be affected by any outside radiation. And they had a healer and an observer and a random number generator in this environment as they brought in various healers to do healing on pain in people's wrists. And what they found was not only did they document the reduction in pain from these healing intentions and these energy practices like Reiki, but the random number generator within that enclosed, shielded environment actually shifted into a more orderly distribution of numbers while those healing sessions were happening. And this was in a statistically very significant change. So even an inanimate object like a random number generator is affected by the field of consciousness in which it's operating.
Yeah, Kevin, that particular random number generator event with 9/11 was that the actual output of the random number generators that are around the world actually shifted quite significantly on that particular time because of the sheer emotional content of that event. I certainly remember I was lecturing at a university at that point in that it was a morning time in New Zealand when I was there, and the sheer shift in energy, disbelief, dismay, the power of that swept across the university and my classes. I was teaching a master's class, funnily enough, in aircraft simulation, in designing aircraft, simulators through programming in 3D. So it was a very curious, connection to have at that time. And we were emotionally, as a group, I think people were just dismayed and to, but to that real soul dropping level. And I got calls right while I was in the class from, friends of mine in the US saying, are you watching this? I mean, they just couldn't believe it. There was a sense of disbelief right throughout the world, and such a palpable emotion felt collectively. So it's no wonder that it had an effect on the random number generators. And additionally, when you were talking about this, that this is global conscious connectedness that extends beyond our planet, that's a cosmic connectedness. I was in a group, we were discussing a potential project with a scientist, Sperry Andrews, who's also a well-known artist, and he was speaking about the interconnectedness between other, what we would call extraterrestrial civilizations, that different civilizations in different part of the cosmos have already worked out this global unity or global brain or connectedness, and they're just simply waiting for Earth to do its part and come together in connection and figure out that we're much more powerful as a global brain than as a separate one, right? It seems to make sense. We spend so much money on, watching a football get kicked around a field, and everybody knows, if you ask somebody, does the better team win? Well, yeah, of course it does. We seem to know that intuitively, yet we haven't figured out that the better team would actually win if we were the team on Earth. It's like, it seems so obvious. It's almost in our genes physically to work together as a group, yet, that whole tribe, one, one humanity, yet we haven't quite figured out the mechanisms to do that. So I'm really genuinely deeply interested in consciously connecting our planet so that we can consciously connect the cosmos. I think any extraterrestrial civilization will purely not be that much interested in us until we figure out our global brain, because there's so much power and coherence. We know, so coming back to our ROV groups, we know as a group how powerful that is. You can see on people's faces, they express it in their inner felt sensation. It assists their meditation. They feel genuinely uplifted all meditating together. So, put that on a global scale, and you instantly answer many of our problems of separation, isolation, depression, fear, anxiety, and so on, simply by joining together in a collective and coherent way. So,
absolutely. And so that's really what we're all about here at Raising Our Vibration, as Stephen and I really are offering these opportunities to come together and experience the shared consciousness, which we are. So it's not that we're making it happen, we are awakening to it. And we're awakening to it in these collective and shared practices through our subtle energy meditation course, through our ROV global meditations each month, through the meditation app in which we share in common practices. And so we really invite all of you to join us in these collective practices to really awaken to that shared consciousness which we are, and to reinforce that and to make that the dominant awareness that we live within. So, Stephen, I want to really thank you for this shared consciousness that we experience with each other, with our groups, and we invite all of you to join us in these group events and group activities. And you can learn more about them on our Facebook page, Raising Our Vibration Community. So Thank you, Stephen. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your practice. And we look forward to seeing you at an event or a course soon.